Welcome back to Mosaic. We're with Dr. David Hollinger this morning. One of the books he's written is After Cloven Tongues of Fire. It's about modern liberalism, modern liberal Protestantism in American history. We're talking specifically now about kind of the missionaries of these denominations, of these two parties, and how they've influenced so much U.S. society. We were about to talk about the influence of foreign service and foreign policy. These are the missionary movement, the missionaries who are now affecting our political climate and decisions.
It may be that the most important single consequence of the liberal ecumenical missionary project abroad was the creation in the United States during the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and after, of a substantial number of people who believed that the foreign policy of the United States should be oriented to the self-defined interests of non-white decolonizing peoples. So the missionaries who'd spent time in India and Africa and the Middle East, they come back and they say, American foreign policy is too oriented to the old colonial powers.
Yes.
And we are using the Cold War, for example, as a context for being against Arab nationalists, for being against nationalists in Southeast Asia. So the people who come out of the missionary project and who advance these views, they do so partly in the public domain, in writing op-ed pages and in resolutions for their churches. But they also express it in the Foreign Service, in the CIA, in the State Department.
How did they get influenced?
The way this works is that when World War II comes along, the government of the United States doesn't have very many people who are really fluent in foreign languages and who are deeply knowledgeable about what goes on in these societies. So the government sort of very quickly in 1941 and 1942 looks around for people who know about this. And they find all these missionaries and the children of missionaries. And these people are fluent in Chinese, Japanese, Arabic, Vietnamese, all the different languages that are suddenly important strategically. So they get into government. And when they're there, they have all these quarrels because the establishment in the State Department and in much of the Foreign Service thinks of American foreign policy in relation to our European allies. So one of the guys that I study, and I just have completed a book exactly on this called Protestants Abroad, How Missionaries Tried to Change the World but Changed the United States, also published by my publisher Princeton that you mentioned a while ago. This book is heavily about a number of individuals in the government who try to change American foreign policy but generally fail. They generally fail. Like there's this one guy who was a former missionary to Thailand. He's brought into the government right away in 1941 because Roosevelt and his Joint Chiefs of Staff don't have anybody who knows about Southeast Asia. So this guy immediately goes into war, basically, against the other State Department guys on what American foreign policy should be. And he says, you guys are too closely allied with the British Empire, the French Empire, and the Dutch Empire. He says, this missionary guy, his name's Kenneth Landon, he says, what we need is an alliance with these indigenous people. And he fights this all the way through the war. And one of the most interesting things that he does, this guy is the author of the document of earliest date in the Pentagon Papers. They're released in 1971, this great compendium, all these documents about how the United States got foolishly involved in Vietnam. Okay, this guy is the author of the earliest document, which is 1946, and what it's based on is 10 days of conversations he has with Ho Chi Minh in Hanoi, because he's there in Hanoi, and Ho Chi Minh loves him, and he likes Ho Chi Minh a lot. So they developed this idea that the United States maybe should take over Vietnam as a protectorate to protect it from the Chinese and the Russians, sort of like the United States had the Philippines as a protectorate and then was in the process of giving it independence.
Dr. Hollinger, what's motivating these missionaries to move the United States in this direction? Is it their faith? Is it their patriotism? What is it?
The basic background to it, the sort of starting point for that, is classic Christian universalism.
Yeah.
I mean, these people took the Sermon on the Mount seriously. So they believed
Matthew
in
5,
the
6,
radical
7.
equality of all
Yeah.
human souls. So
Yes.
Galatians 3:28, in Christ there is no male or female, no slave nor free.
Greek or Joe.
That's right. So they
Greek or
take
Jew.
this stuff.
Yeah.
So and you know, the scriptures, well, you can sort of take what you want and do with it, but they went with that.
And we're going to have to leave it there and encourage people to read this wonderful book, to hear more about these stories and how they changed America. Protestants Abroad by Dr. David Hollinger. Thank you so much. You've been a wonderful guest, and appreciated your being here on Mosaic.